Hello guys. This is the Orange Hokage here. And today we are doing What If Naruto Went Back in Time with Sakura Part 9. The link of the original creator story is in the description. So let's get right into the story. Team 7. This is Shibuki. He is the present leader of Taki Gakure no Sato. Hiruzen said as Team 7 and their Jonin captain walked into the room. Inside, Hiruzen was sitting on the couch that was placed in one side with a small coffee table in front of it. Sitting on the couch placed at a right angle to the one Hiruzen was sitting was a black-haired man about Kakashi's age wearing the uniform of a Taki ninja. All members of Team 7 nodded their heads to Shibuki before turning their attention towards Hiruzen. The aged Hokage took a sip from his teacup before speaking. Shibuki came here with an interesting proposal. I don't know if you are aware, but the Nanabi no Kobatombushi is in Taki. Ever since Hashirama-sensei spread out the Bijū among the nations, it has been there. Until now, none of the Jinchuriki have ever been treated well, even though Taki has never faced the wrath of one. So let me guess, Gigi, the present Jinchuriki is ostracized for a burden they didn't want? Naruto asked with a cold tone causing a shiver to run down Shibuki's spine. That's right, Naruto-kun. Young Fu is somewhat like a surrogate sister to Shibuki. He came to us with hopes that you can help her overcome some issues she has been having after mastering the third tail. That is a mission for Konoha. He also wishes to speak with you privately as the Uzumaki clan head. From what I could gather, he wishes to procure the skills of the Uzumaki. If Naruto accepts Shibuki's request, then the parameters of the mission will change from escort Shibuki back to Taki and help young Fu to include protection, a detail for Naruto while he does the second mission. Naruto, please remain behind. The rest of Team 7 accompany me to the adjacent room while Shibuki and Naruto talks over the details of the second mission. Hiruzen said, standing up with an imperious demeanor before walking out of the room with the rest of Team 7 walking behind him. Naruto and Shibuki stared at each other for a few moments before Naruto occupied the recently vacated couch. With a nod, Naruto motioned for Shibuki to speak. A good day to you, Naruto-sama. I wish to procure your clan's skills in Fuinjutsu to check the seal on Fu. The last of Taki's Fuinjutsu masters were killed on a mission recently. I need someone to check her seal, as I fear that the last use of 4 taels worth of Nanabi's chakra may have corroded it. Along with that, I would like you to check the seals that help us maintain our secrecy. Taki would be happy to pay whatever you want for the job. Naruto silently pondered for a moment before speaking. So let me get this straight, you want me to check her seal along with the seals Senju Mito gifted your village as you fear that they may have been damaged and you have no Fuinjutsu experts at the moment, and you are willing to pay any price I would declare? Shibuki nodded in agreement with everything Naruto said until the price for the job came up. With how Naruto stated it, Shibuki realized the major loophole he left. With an embarrassed smile Shibuki corrected, any price within reason. Naruto nodded with a grin, new to politics? Yeah, I became the leader a couple of months ago. I had trained for a long time under father, but taking the seat is still difficult, especially since I don't have the active experience in politics and business deals. Lucky for you, I am not a malicious person. With the loophole you left, I could have asked for the destruction of Taki and you would be honor-bound to follow through or be branded as honorless fools. Anyway, I accept the job. The standard price we asked for routine maintenance of a single seal of the caliber you want me to check is equivalent to an S-ranked mission price, though it may increase if you want changes done to the seals. Though I am willing to give you a discount as the first customer since the re-emergence of the clan. You will only have to pay the cost of an A-ranked mission per seal. Though the Jinchuriki seal will still need SS rank pay as is the price. Shibuki rubbed his chin as he thought of the price Naruto asked before nodding in agreement. I agree with your price, Naruto-sama. The security of my village is at stake. I shouldn't be a cheapskate about price in such situations. Naruto nodded as he unsealed a blood seal contract and filled in the particulars for the job and the price before placing a drop of blood on one of the seals at the bottom of the document. Before placing another drop on another seal. Shibuki watched amazed as the seals glowed red before vanishing, leaving behind the final seal. Place a drop of your blood on the final seal to finalize the job, Naruto said as he turned the document to Shibuki. The leader of Taki nodded as he quickly went through the document before placing the requested drop of blood on the seal. To his surprise, right after the seal vanished, two identical copies of the document appeared atop the contract in a puff of smoke. What happened? Shibuki asked with confusion. Naruto chuckled and said, the contract makes two copies when the job is finalized. There are hidden seals engraved on the document that makes it possible. All three copies are tamper-proof. Keep the lowest one, the other two are meant for the Uzumaki archives and the clan member who is meant to do the work, which in this case is me. Shibuki nodded and returned the top two copies to Naruto. I plan to leave early in the morning tomorrow, Naruto-sama. I hope that isn't a problem with you. Not at all, Shibuki-san. I will inform my team. Are you returning to the Golden Leaf? That's the plan. It is already late in the evening, the sun has nearly set. I want to make sure that I am rested for the journey back. After Takahito died, we have become a bit paranoid. Naruto nodded with a sad smile. I understand. The Anbu will escort you back. Have a good night, Shibuki-san. To you as well, Naruto-sama. Shibuki said as he walked out of the room and motioned for the Anbu standing outside to lead him back. So did you take the job, Naruto? Naruto turned his head and smiled at the source of the voice, which turned out to be Sakura. The pink-haired medic was sitting on her favorite red cushion drinking a cup of herbal tea. Sure did, though I didn't expect a clan job so soon. Sakura hummed as she placed her cup on the small table in front of her and poured another cup for Naruto, who scrunched up his nose in disgust but without prompting, sat down on the orange cushion opposite his teammate and took the cup of tea before taking a small sip. Surprisingly, he didn't taste the expected bitter taste the previous cups of tea held. Seeing the surprised look, Sakura giggled before saying, "Doesn't taste like you expected, did you?" Naruto shook his head as he placed the cup on the table. "It was not bitter like I expected. I thought it was medicine that would help with the malnutrition." "It is, but not the kind I gave you last time. The previous tea has run its course. In the past 2 months, your body has recovered faster than expected, but I believe that Kurama helped in that aspect. This one is to help get the most nutrition from the smallest of intakes. Tsunade-sama and I were experimenting with it right before pain attacked. It was showing great results. That's why I am also taking it. It will help us regain our physical forms faster and help maintain it with less ration as well." Naruto shrugged before saying, "This is the better tasting medicine I have taken yet." "It should be. It is a blend of medicinal herbs with some of the most exquisite tea from Cha no Kuni. Originally it wasn't this good tasting. After coming back, I had been experimenting with different blends to make it this good, especially for you since you tend to complain against the taste of the medicinal tea," Sakura said with a small smile, getting a large grin from Naruto in return. "Thanks, Sakura-chan. You are awesome. If it was Ba-chan, she would have force-fed me the yucky-tasting tea." Sakura shook her head with fondness before her face hosted a serious expression. "That isn't true, besides you didn't answer my question." Naruto nodded. "I accepted the job. It was a routine seal maintenance job. I have already learned enough to do that. I will have to look at Fu's seal as well. Shibuki fears that the seal is degrading. We know that isn't the case, as you had yourself seen her in action 2 years from now, but there may be changes in this timeline." "That is true. So much has changed this time around, yet some things are still the same. Are you planning to give Chomai her memories when you check up on the seal?" "That's the plan. It will be easier than sneaking into Taki, but I didn't expect the mission to escort Shibuki already. We haven't been to Nami yet. It is still nearly a month away before Tazuna comes to Konoha." Sakura nodded in agreement before saying, "That's true, but he may have been here due to the death of his representative. He just used this opportunity to come here earlier. Then again, he may have ulterior motives. He is the leader of a powerful village. Taki may be small, but no invasion against it has ever succeeded unless a former Taki ninja was involved. Naruto nodded before his eyes widened in shock. Sakura, I think that there is a seal that can be added to Taki's defenses that would incapacitate Kakazo and any such traitors. Sakura looked pensive before saying, like the one surrounding the compound? Exactly like the one surrounding the compound. Just have to tweak it a little to increase the size of the barrier to encompass the whole of Taki. With proper tweaks, we can even have all of Konoha under that seal. That's all well and good, Naruto, but why give it to Taki? They may be allies at the moment, but that can easily change in the future. The seal has some weaknesses. Toby would easily be able to bypass it. The seal need the target to touch the barrier to start tracking. Then there is the problem of it not extending underground. Zetsu can bypass it as well. I plan to give that version to Taki. It would protect Fu as long as she isn't kicked out of Taki. I will leave a loophole to monitor the situation. Sakura nodded in agreement before saying, why not ask for Fu and the Nanabi as payment for the seal? Naruto blinked owlishly for a moment before saying with a sad tone, that thought didn't cross my mind, though I doubt they would be willing to part with their Jinchuriki. To most, we are weapons after all. Sakura nodded in agreement as she drained her cup of tea before standing up. Shibuki plans to leave in the morning, right? That's right. Kakashi-sensei informed you and Sasuke? Sakura nodded. He did, and he said that we need to be early. Like he is one to talk, the hypocrite. Even after the threats, he still comes late. Naruto gave an awkward laugh. Ha ha ha. That's Kakashi-sensei for you. At least he is only a few minutes late now instead of 3 hours. Still, he is a jonin. He should be a bit more professional. Anyway, good night, Naruto. See you at the gate. Naruto nodded as Sakura vanished in a puff of smoke. Naruto, are you really going to go through with your plan? Your teammate won't like it. Especially since you haven't discussed it with her. The deep rumbling voice of Kurama reverberated through Naruto's mind. You are worrying for nothing. I have a feeling that it would be needed. Having a backup plan is always good. I have rushed into danger without one too many times in the past to not plan ahead from now on. Especially since our opponent is Madara and Toby. Kurama gave a mental equivalent of a shrug before going quiet, leaving Naruto to his own thoughts. Next morning, Sakura was the first one to arrive at the main gates. She looked around before sighing in annoyance right before Naruto and Sasuke appeared in a shunshin. Morning, you two. Get any sleep? Naruto gave a big yawn before grumbling out, not really. I needed to check through some of the sealing notes on the seal that my clan gifted to Taki. I do think my plan is feasible. Sasuke just grunted in greeting before looking at Naruto with curiosity. What plan, Naruto? Huh. Oh right, you didn't come by last night. As I said to Sakura, a barrier similar to the one that surrounds my compound can be integrated into the present formula without much problem. Still, do you think it wise to strengthen a foreign village like that? Sakura said with a frown. Sasuke frowned as well, only for Naruto to wave off the concern. It isn't like I am not leaving a back door in it. Besides, it has a weakness to Jikiken ninjutsu and tunneling under the barrier, remember. Still, I think that your concern isn't necessary, Sakura. It has such a massive glaring hole in the structure. Granted, Jikiken ninjutsu isn't common, but tunneling under the barrier, which must be barely a couple of inches thick, can be easily done. He offers his hand in friendship while leaving clutching a dagger behind his back. It is a wise precaution. Besides, he doesn't need to let Taki know about the glaring weaknesses. Sasuke said with a grin. Sakura huffed but nodded in agreement that the plan was sound. She was about to open her mouth to speak when Shibuki appeared with Kakashi. Good morning, team. I hope you all are packed and ready to go? Kakashi asked, getting nods from his team as each of them brought out storage scrolls, or in Naruto's case pointed to a massive scroll strapped to his back. Kakashi nodded in satisfaction before saying, we are going to travel in arrowhead formation with Sasuke taking point, Naruto your left wingman, Sakura your right wingman, Shibuki directly behind you, with me taking up the rear. Any questions? Sasuke looked at his two teammates before speaking up. What speed are we moving at? Mid-Chunin. I know that Naruto and Sakura can maintain that for over 10 hours before being tired. Well, in Sakura's case, Naruto has enough stamina to put Yae to shame. Anyway, how long do you think you can maintain it? 6, 7 hours tops. Naruto and Sakura have forced me to increase my stamina along with my speed during our personal team training for the past month. I should be fine to fight if we keep in that time span. Kakashi nodded while Shibuki looked startled at the revelation. He didn't think that the Gending of Konoha were that capable. Sure, Naruto was a monster, but he was also an Uzumaki and a Jinchuriki. It was expected of him, but two Genin, one from a civilian family and the other from the famous Uchiha clan, but only a handful of Uchiha have ever come to become something great. The rest were just mediocre at best. What kind of training creates such monsters? Get in formation in front of the gate. I will handle the sign out with Izumo and Getetsu. Do an equipment check while I do that, Kakashi said as he approached the small hut. Behind him, his team and Shibuki got into their assigned positions before checking over themselves for their equipment. After a couple of minutes, Kakashi took up his position and gave the signal to move, causing the group to rush out of the gates and vanish into the trees. The group traveled towards Taki at mid-Chunin speed, taking small rests every 6 hours to give Sasuke and apparently Shibuki a respite to catch their breaths. With all the rests, it still took the group 3 days to reach Taki. As the group approached a large waterfall, Shibuki called for them to stop just as multiple Taki ninja appeared from the trees surrounding the waterfall. Shibuki-sama, you have finally returned. I hope that you didn't have any problems on the road? A petite Konoha asked with a smile as she looked at the Konoha ninja escorting her leader. None at all, Kodo, no trouble here, I hope? We did have a bit of a problem last night from Kanoko trying to get back in without the proper paperwork, but that was easily solved. I still don't know why you allow her to stay as a Konoha. She keeps misplacing her id. Kodo said with a huff. Shibuki just shook his head in exasperation but nodded. I will give her another warning. Now open up the gates, Kodo. Uzumaki-sama has accepted the job. Kodo nodded to her leader before turning to the Konoha ninja and with a bow directed to Naruto, said, Welcome to Taki, Uzumaki-sama and comrades. I hope you will find your stay here pleasing. Haru, open the gate. Yes, Taicho. The shinobi standing on a ledge said as he took out a stone key with seals carved on it. Placing the key in a hidden slot behind him, the man turned then key clockwise. With a low groaning, a large spire of rock emerged from the waterfall, separating the curtain into two, leaving behind a massive gaping maw in between. Well, follow me. Be sure to step only where I step. Shibuki said with a grim expression, causing drops of sweat to form on Sasuke, Kakashi, and Sakura's foreheads. The booby trap's right. That's why we used the official entrance instead of the usual one? Naruto said with a mischievous grin, causing Shibuki to look at the blonde Jinchuriki in shock. How did you know? I can sense everything within 10 kilometers of me. That means I knew that we were going towards the official entrance instead of the secondary one, but I agree with the sentiment. Never show your main entrance to foreigners. That was a mistake my clan made in the past and paid for it. Shibuki nodded. I see, Naruto-sama. Then you can sense Taki as well? Naruto nodded, causing the leader to sigh. Well, I believe that most sensors can barely feel 3 furlongs. You are the exception, so I don't think it is a danger, but is there any way to confuse sensory abilities? There are a few barriers, but they won't stop anyone like me. My abilities come from both emotion sensing and sensing life instead of chakra, which in turns comes from my senjutsu. So I don't think you would need such an addition. Of course, if you are willing to pay for it, I can integrate it into the seal. Shibuki looked surprised but grinned at the subtle jab. Behind them, the remaining members of Team 7 were grinning as well. We can discuss it later, Naruto-sama, but first, welcome to Taki, proper. Team 7 looked on in awe as they laid their eyes on the massive tree that grew in the middle of the village surrounded by a body of pristine clear water. Well, Naruto and Sakura had already seen the village once, but they didn't have the chance to admire it last time, not with the grumbling they were doing for being assigned that stupid cleaning job. Beautiful, isn't it? Team 7 nodded in agreement before Naruto sensed someone above. Before anyone realized what happened, Naruto had vanished in a swirl of wind. What happened? Shibuki shouted in shock, only for Sakura to look up with an annoyed expression on her face, as she was greeted to the sight of a mint-haired, tan-skinned girl with orange eyes, wearing white midriff shirt and apron skirt over fishnet armor and shorts. Her Hittite was tied to her right arm. Shibuki-sama, is that Taki's Jinchuriki? Shibuki looked up in the direction Sakura pointed to see Naruto float in front of a stunned Fu, who had her fist connected to Naruto's. Fu, Shibuki-sama has returned. Go and keep an eye on him. Foreign dignitaries are accompanying him. Fu said to herself in a mocking tone. What do they take me for? I may be a Jinchuriki, but I still need rest. Damned elders. Fu looked down as she flew above the official entrance and saw Shibuki being accompanied by a shinobi she recognized as Hittite Kakashi. Along with him must have been his genin team, Fu realized, though she felt a strange sense of familiarity with the blonde genin. As she hovered above the group, she saw the blonde genin suddenly vanish from existence. Before she could react, the same blonde appeared out of thin air in front of her with a grin on his face. She saw that the boy looked friendly as he extended his right fist to her. Though wary of his intentions, Fu extended her fist and met his right before her eyes widened in shock. Fu looked around the place she suddenly found herself in. It was a white expanse of space. She saw that she was the only one present before she turned around to see Chomai behind her, completely unrestrained. Chomai, what's going on? Fu asked with confusion, only for Chomai to look right past her as the Bijū spoke to her. We are in the mental dimension we Bijū can use to communicate with each other, and through us our Jinchuriki. So Kurama, what do you and your Jinchuriki want? Though I must confess I am shocked to see you getting along with your Jinchuriki. What are you talking about, Chomai? We are the only ones here. Fu said before the sound of clapping caught her attention. Turning around, she came face to face with the same blonde-haired boy with whom she bumped fists. Behind him was the majestic Kyuubi no Yoko, grinning at her. Ah. Hi, I am Fu. The girl said with an awkward smile. This situation was way out of her comfort zone. The name's Uzumaki Naruto. So Fu, tell me, were you mistreated here? Naruto asked with a nonchalant tone, causing Fu to glare at the blonde. You should know? I mean, you were a Jinchuriki after all. Naruto gave an understanding smile before saying, let me rephrase it. How badly were you treated? Fu became suspicious. Why are you interested? To see if you have any reason to leave your village. There is a group S-rank Nukenin working to gather all 9 Bijū. If you plan to leave your village, you would be vulnerable. I would be willing to offer you a place as a retainer of the Uzumaki clan, thereby under both our protection and Konoha's. So tell me? Fu looked at Naruto and Kurama with suspicion before sighing, nothing more than verbal and mental abuse. They didn't dare harm me physically out of fear of releasing Chomai. Neither did they try to rape me. I don't really have many people I love here. Only Shibuki and my sensei. I know that the elders were planning to exile me if I lose control again. Shibuki denied it, but my insects heard them talking. So what about you? How was your life? Much like yours, but I never gave up and finally gained recognition. Well, the elders and Shibuki fear that your seal has weakened, though I doubt it. If I am not mistaken, Taki was given the Gashuteki Fu in. It shouldn't corrode even if Juki's full power is used. I know for a fact that it is the same seal that Kairobi, the Hichibi Jinchuriki has, and he can easily access by Jumodo. But she doesn't have that seal. It hasn't been used since a couple of years after the fall of Yuzu when my first Jinchuriki died. She has the Shishin Sina Chako Fu in. Chomai said, getting a growl from Naruto. And where did they get it? No, don't answer that. I can use the seal to force some concessions. Using stolen jutsu from a royal clan right after the genocide of the clan is a criminal offense. Taki is on thin ice now. Naruto said with a grin that Kurama mirrored. You aren't going to destroy Taki, are you? Fu asked with trepidation. No, I won't, but the elders will wish I did. Besides, because of the usage of a new Uzumaki seal without permission is a breach of contract. The reason why Shibuki approached me was to renew the contract between Taki and Yuzu. Besides, it wasn't designed to hold back a Bijū. It is amazing that it hasn't failed, but it may be because of Chomai's milder temperament. Naruto hypothesized, getting a chuckle from Kurama. Naruto, will you get on with the reason we made contact? Kurama said as she tried to slam his paw onto Naruto only for the boy to catch it with ease. Chomai and Fu watched in shock at the interaction as Naruto growled at the large fox. Stop that, Kurama. Anyway, do you recognize this Chomai? Naruto raised his palm and in it coalesced a flame-like chakra, but unlike normal chakra, which was blue, this was red. Chomai gasped in shock while Fu looked at it with confusion. So, that's just Bijū chakra. Kyubai's right? How did you get that? Chomai asked, suddenly furious. I walk amongst the ghosts. Here, take it. Naruto said as he threw the flaming chakra to Chomai, who caught it in one of her tails. Fu looked confused, but before she could say anything, Chomai touched Naruto on the stomach with her tail. Here is the gift back. You are wise to include us in your plans. I will make sure that Fu gets strong enough to be able to survive using my chakra completely. Though how will she master her dark side? I will ask Gamamaru-sensei. Now Fu, don't react when I ask to see your Goshuteki Fu in. It is best no one knows about what happened. Chomai, fill her in on the threat. We will see you later. Naruto said before he and Kurama faded from view. After they had completely faded, Fu turned to Chomai and asked the question that was plaguing her mind. What really happened, Chomai? At first, you were suspicious, but after he gave the chakra you changed. It was my chakra. Chakra had willingly gifted to the young man. He is very important, Fu. Follow his lead. He is the only one I can trust to lead us through the approaching dark times. He is the Yojin no Ko. The one prophesies to save the world, or destroy it. With our help, it will be the former. Fu looked surprised but nodded. All right, Chomai, I will trust him, because you do. That's good, little one. We better get out of here. We will talk later. Fu nodded before both faded as well. Fu stumbled for a moment before she was caught in the embrace of a gentle wind, which gently lowered her down to the ground right in front of Shibuki and the rest of Team 7. Fu looked disoriented for a moment before looking up at Shibuki with a smile. Welcome back, Shibuki. Didn't face any assassination attempts without me, did you? Everyone on Team 7 stared at the mint-haired Kunoichi with deadpan expressions while Shibuki just fondly shook his head before pulling the girl into an embrace. Good to see you as well, Fu, and no, we didn't face any assassination attempts. Getting out of the embrace, Fu pouted and said, that's good, but why didn't you take me with you? It was boring here without you to annoy. Shibuki smiled before turning to Team 7, this is Taki's Jinchuriki Fu, though I believe that you already realized it, Naruto-sama. Naruto nodded, that I did. Kurama and I already had a conversation with her and Chomai. From what I could gather, Chomai isn't actively working against her. In fact, Chomai has a fondness for Fu. That makes it easier for her to master Chomai's power. The reason she can't use more than the four-tailed cloak is because she hasn't dealt with the darkness within herself. It is a must for any Jinchuriki to access above four tails. That will require intense meditation and soul-searching on Fu's part. Fu looked surprised, as did Shibuki, Kakashi, and Sasuke. Fu stepped forward and asked, you mean to say that I will have to sit still for hours, meditating and soul-searching before I can synchronize with Chomai? Naruto nodded, causing Fu to violently curse. Shibuki just looked at the cursing girl with affection before saying, I think you just disappointed Fu. She seems to suffer from ADHD. She can't stay still for more than a few moments. Fu glared at Shibuki as everyone laughed, so was Naruto. He was and is very hyperactive. I have calmed down a lot, Kakashi-sensei. Becoming a sage requires patience. Granted, learning to sit completely still was a pain in the ass, but I succeeded and became that much more powerful for it. I have to agree with Naruto, sensei. He has truly calmed down a lot, though I think that this hyperactivity common among higher Jinchuriki may be due to the massive amounts of chakra their Bijū contain. Leave the medical theories at home, Sakura. None of us want to sit through a lecture that none of us can understand. Kakashi admonished, causing the girl to huff in annoyance. None of you understand the beauty of medical ninjutsu and theory. There are no subtlety in any of your techniques. I can injure you in such a way that you will die a few days later and no one would even realize why. Everyone shivered in realization of how dangerous a fully trained Ronin was. Naruto turned to Sakura with a grin and said, "That may be true, but you preferred the unsubtle ways as well. Your monstrous strength is a testament to that fact. Shibuki-san, we should head towards the village. After finding a secure place, I can check Fu's seal." "Oh. So that's the kind of person you are? We haven't met even an hour and you are trying to get me out of my clothes." "Smooth 9. Fu said with a teasing grin, causing Naruto to stumble in his step before vehemently declining her statement. "No, I wasn't. Besides, I was hired to check the seal." Naruto sputtered out, causing everyone to chuckle at his expense. "I was just teasing, besides we are ninja. Standard morality doesn't really apply to us. After all, the villages train kids to become assassins," Fu said with a somber tone as everyone nodded in agreement with the girl. After that, the group walked down the path heading towards the village in silence. The members of Team 7 looking about their surroundings, trying to take in the rare sight of Taki. A sight that very few foreigners have the chance to witness. Shibuki and the 5 village elders were standing outside the room in which Naruto was examining Fu's seal with Sakura as the medic in standby. Sasuke and Kakashi were leaning on the opposite wall staring at the door with frowns. "Does standard seal maintenance really take this long, Kakashi-sensei?" Sasuke asked with a frown. Kakashi mirrored Sasuke's frown. "Not really, unless the seal has really deteriorated that Naruto has to practically rebuild the seal. Let's hope that isn't the case." Near them, the elders and Shibuki frowned at the thought. Sasuke nodded before asking, "Why was Sakura allowed in while we weren't?" "Sakura is the medic monitoring Fu's health. If Naruto has to rebuild the seal, it will be Sakura's duty to stabilize her while Naruto rebuilds the broken seal. You may not know this, but if the Bijū is ripped from its Jinchuriki, the container dies. Rebuilding the seal causes similar damage to the Jinchuriki's chakra coils. The medic's job is to heal the damage before it can become permanent." Sasuke nodded in understanding before Kakashi said, "That and because Fu and Naruto are of opposite gender. A moderator is usually there as well so nothing inappropriate happens. Not that Naruto would do anything inappropriate, but it is just a precaution so that no one can accuse him of being inappropriate." A click drew the attention of everyone. Looking towards the room, the heavy wooden door swung open, followed by an infuriated Naruto with a meek Fu following him, supported by Sakura. "Naruto-sama, what is the condition of the seal?" one of the elders asked with a haughty tone, only for his expression to wilt in the presence of Naruto's anger. "When was the seal changed?" The elders and Shibuki looked confused as Sakura motioned for Sasuke to help her support Fu towards the balcony. Another elder, an old woman nearly in her 80s, stepped forward. "That has been the seal used by Taki for 2 generations now. Fu's predecessor also had that seal." "Is that so?" Naruto asked with an imperious raising of his eyebrow, causing Kakashi to look startled. Naruto's demeanor told him that it was no longer the Naruto he knew, but the Yuzu daimyo who was speaking. "That's right, Naruto-sama," another elder said with a simper, causing Naruto to glare at them. "And did you know that the seal used is much too weak to be effective? What happened to the seal Mito-sama had gifted to Taki?" "The Goshu Tenfuin?" Shibuki asked, getting a nod from Naruto. The elders had forbidden its use after the fall of Jūbi. 2 years after the fall, they were able to acquire the seal during my grandfather's reign and authorize the change. Naruto turned his suddenly golden eyes on the nervous group of elders before asking in a monotone, "Let me get this straight. Your lot illegally got your hands on Uzumaki clan property and instead of returning it to Mito-sama, you decided to keep it. Not only that, without understanding the consequences, you ordered the change on the operating seal for your Jinchuriki. Did I make a mistake?" The 5 elders looked at each other nervously before turning to Naruto and said, "We sent a letter to Mito-sama, but never received an answer. As we asked for permission to use the seal, when no reply came, we assumed Mito-sama didn't object." "I see, so you sent a letter to Mito-sama? Do you take me for a fool? I can sense your emotions and can easily tell that you are lying. No one in this world can lie to me. That is a black mark against you. Do you know what happens to those who steal from a royal clan?" Shibuki looked startled at the revelation. He was now afraid of the retribution Naruto could legally bring down on Taki. If he wanted, Naruto could easily destroy Taki, and no one would say anything in protest. After all, he was the slighted party. The elders paled in realization. "That's right. If I was cruel, I could have asked for the enslavement of the whole of Taki and then send you all to the mines owned by my clan. Luckily for you, I only asked 2 things. Fu will be released from Taki into my care as a retainer. Second, execution of you 5 elders for abetting theft and fraud against a royal clan. Shibuki, I expect to hear these 5 have been executed by tomorrow and make sure that Fu's discharge and transfer papers are ready by the time I have done with the barrier seals. I was going to update them with a new feature for free, but due to the transgressions of your country against my clan, I shall not. Also know this, the treaty between Taki and Yuzu is hereby dissolved. You will need to renegotiate a treaty if you wish to keep an alliance with Yuzu. Remember this, your alliance with Konoha is a direct result of your alliance with us," Naruto said before walking towards the balcony with Kakashi following him. Fu sat down on the bench with a little help from Sasuke and Sakura. With shaking hands, Fu took the water flask Sakura offered her and took a long draught before handing the flask back. "That was the worst situation I have ever been through. Luckily, I won't have to go through a similar situation in the future." Sakura giggled before saying, "Then make sure you don't get pregnant. A female Jinchuriki seal has a high chance to break during childbirth. It's what happened with Naruto's mother." Fu's eyes widened in shock as she stuttered out, "Naruto's mother was his predecessor?" Sakura nodded with a solemn expression. Her lips pulled into a tight line. "It is quite sad that Yondaime-sama, a world-renowned Fuinjutsu master, was unable to repair the seal holding the fox back. Then again, the power of Nakubai is nearly unimaginable." Fu was about to speak when Naruto and Kakashi walked onto the balcony, both wearing aggravated expressions. Sasuke stared at the duo with a frown just before the 5 elders rushed in after them with Shibuki not far behind them. "Who do you think you are, Uzumaki?" one of the elders growled out. "How dare you threaten and order us about? The Taki daimyo won't agree with your demands," another elder exclaimed while the female elder was trying to make them see reason. Naruto turned his golden eyes on the elders, causing them to freeze. With a glower, Naruto hissed out, "Who am I? How dare I threaten and order you? The Taki daimyo won't agree with my demands. You should be thanking me that I was merciful enough to only ask for your lives only and that Fu be released to me as payment of the transgressions against my clan. I can guarantee that your daimyo will agree with my demands and in fact add more punishments onto Taki. I think you don't realize the precarious position you are in. Abetting theft and fraud against a noble clan will have you all hanged at minimum. Against a royal clan, you can understand the consequences." Sasuke walked up beside his teammate and asked, "What's going on, Naruto?" The elders had the gall to use a stolen Uzumaki proprietary seal, an ineffective one mind you, without permission. They are allies and knew at least one living member of my clan and where she lived and decided to keep the seal and the information to themselves. calling for their execution and release of Fu into the care of my clan was the most merciful retribution I could ask, wasn't it? You should have executed them right where they stood, but I understand that you are being your merciful self again," Sasuke said before glaring at the elders with his Sharingan active. "Watch your tongue, boy. You may be the last Uchiha, but you have no say here, neither does Uzumaki. Elders, that's enough. You have committed treason against Taki by stealing from an ally and then trying to defraud them, which led to the dissolving of a nearly century-old treaty. Your actions have harmed Taki and for that you shall pay. Even if Naruto-sama didn't call for your execution, I would have had you executed anyway. Now be silent before I decided to have your families charged with treason as well." That statement from Shibuki caused the clamoring elders to suddenly become quiet before one of them growled out, "You would side with an outsider against your own people." Before anyone could react, one of the elders made a hidden sign causing two teams of Anbu to appear. Shibuki looked startled as the Anbu drew their tanto. "What the hell are you doing? Stand down, Anbu." "They won't listen to you, Shibuki. We were planning to tell you later, but we have decided to have you replaced. You are too soft. You protect the demon while ignoring her transgressions against the village, and you are a poor leader, unable to discipline your subordinates. Anbu, execute them." The guards standing at the base of the administration building suddenly straightened their back in shock. Before they could say anything, a man nearing his 40s walked past them with a guard of 6 samurai and ninja. The man was wearing robes made of green silk and wearing a small gold circlet encrusted with jewels on his head. After the man and his guards were outside earshot, one of the guards turned to his fellow and asked, "Did you know Daimyo-sama was going to be here?" His companion, a young Kunoichi, nodded with a shocked face before peeking her head through the door to see if the daimyo was gone. The Taki daimyo walked up the stairs and came to the top floor when he heard a commotion. Turning towards the source, he saw an elder ordering two teams of Anbu to execute Shibuki, a mint-haired girl and the Konoha ninja, among them being the Yuzu daimyo, and his target. Before the man could put a stop to the farce occurring in front of him, the Anbu had already moved to strike down their targets. Just before the Anbu reached their targets, a wave of nauseous feelings flooded the man's head as an invisible pressure fell on his shoulders, causing him to fall on his knees. Within moments it had passed, and when the man stood and looked about, he saw that he wasn't the only one affected. Everyone except Naruto was on their knees. The Anbu on their backs, their masks shattered and frothing at the mouth. The elders were unconscious along with the Uchiha Jonin. Shibuki was barely awake, and the girls were clutching each other for support. The Jonin he recognized as the infamous copy ninja, Hatake Kakashi, was also on his knees. From the rising of the man's chest, he could deduce that Kakashi was panting heavily. "What in the 9 circles of hell was that? You downed all of us without moving a muscle," Fu exclaimed softly, but in the quiet that followed the wave of whatever it was, everyone could hear her perfectly. "That was my killing intent amplified by Senjutsu," Naruto said with a grin, causing Fu and Shibuki to gape while Sakura to shake her head in exasperation. "Really, Naruto? Give us a warning next time," Sakura complained as she used Inrijutsu to wake Sasuke. The first thing Sasuke asked was, what did he do now? Focused killing intent amplified by Senjutsu, if his word can be believed, Sakura said with a huff as she pulled Sasuke up to his feet. "Hello Raiden Dono. I was planning to meet you soon enough, but since you are already here, I think that it is best we don't waste time." "Hello Naruto-sama, what is the agenda?" Naruto signed before informing the Taki daimyo of the crimes perpetrated by the Taki elders against the Uzumaki and his demands in return. Then their further actions against him, his allies and their own village leader. At the end of the explanation, Naruto said with a grin, "And you saw the end of the confrontation. That's all. I hope I didn't insult you by directly making my demands." "Not at all Naruto-sama. In fact, you did the right thing. I would like to penalize all of Taki, but it seems that those 5 were the only ones directly involved, but I would like them interrogated, if you don't mind?" "Not at all. That's why I asked they be executed by tomorrow at the latest. It would give Taki's T&I division time to draw out the information out of the fools. Also, before you ask, as the old treaty has been dissolved, you and your people will need to negotiate a new one. Naruto said with stern expression, causing the man to wince. Thank you for the head up, Naruto-sama. I will have my advisors draft up a new treaty for your consideration. Now let us retire for some dinner. Shibuki, have your trusted men to arrest these 5 and their lackeys. I want the reports of their interrogation on my desk by dawn. As you wish, Daimyo-sama. Fu, please escort Daimyo-sama, Naruto-sama and their guards. You have permission to use all the power you have at your disposal to protect them and send your sensei up here along with his old teammates. We need to arrest these traitors. Fu nodded before standing up. She was about to follow after the group when Naruto called out, Fu, get some rest. Your chakra coils need time to heal. I can handle any idiots that come after us. But that's an order from a seal master. Your seal has been changed. It needs time to completely settle. Besides, Sakura-chan will agree with me. That's right, Fu, eat dinner and turn in early. You saw that Naruto is never caught off guard. Nothing other than a Jiken ninjutsu can cause him to falter. Fu nodded before looking at Shibuki, who nodded in return, causing the girl to sigh in relief. Her chakra coils did still cause her some phantom pains. Shibuki woke up from his troubled sleep to the sound of knocking. Yawning widely, Shibuki opened the door to his office to see the head of T&I standing in front of him along with Naruto. Huh? What's going on? Shibuki, 4 ninja are infiltrating Taki right at this moment. One of them is Jonin level and the other 3 Chunin. Though you ought to know. Shibuki blinked dumbly before cursing as the head of T&I stared at Naruto in shock. How did you? I sensed them. Then can you tell me if they are heading towards the sacred tree from the north side of the village? That's right, how did you know? Naruto asked as Shibuki gaped at the two in shock. The elders are working with Nukenin of Taki. Your sensei to be exact, Shibuki-sama. Their target is the hero's water. How should we handle the situation? What does the hero's water do? Shibuki stared at Naruto for a moment before sighing. It increases the power of the consumer at the cost of his or her life force. Mobilize the active ninja. We can't allow Saiyan Sensei and his followers get it. No, let them get it. My team and I will handle them. Besides, you said that they sacrifice their life force for the power. We just need them to use up the power boost, and they will die by their own actions. Naruto said with a grin, causing Shibuki and the head of Taki's T&I to gape at with confidence. Before Shibuki nodded in agreement. Naruto's grin widened before he said, good, I will wake up my team and intercept them. Where is the hero's water kept? A hollow in the sacred tree. Fu usually guards it, as the area is very peaceful. Naruto nodded before dissipating in a cloud of smoke. Shibuki stared at the place Naruto occupied before asking, he would have gone after them regardless of my decision, wouldn't he? It looks like it. What should we do? We wait and hope that Naruto-sama and his team is able to defeat them. Then again, I think Naruto-sama can easily defeat them himself. Shibuki said to a nod from his subordinate. So guys, that's it for today. If you like this story and want more, so subscribe and turn on the bell icon. And till then, take care and goodbye.